So I got this rather excited comment on one of my red play button videos in which I specifically talk about the Ankou and go over the basics of that folklore, and yeah, they're asking for more information on that. Now, there actually is a lot here to go over, so this very much is going to be a long video, and obviously this is going to go on my red play button channel under the same name. One of the best books you're going to get on this is the book by Anatole Lebras, which of course you can find in English, and the book in English is The Legend of Death Among the Bretons, which has a lot of stories about the Ankou, of which you can find on Wikisource. Of course, as you state here, it is going to be very different depending on like exactly where the time period we're talking about and things like that, but there does seem to be, even when it comes from folklore outside of Labrouse's book, that you're gonna find things that are about the same. Now, you specifically ask about rules to follow when talking and dealing with them, and the thing is like there's not really like a list of etiquette. There is just more of taboos you don't do. And again, there will be variances, but I'm gonna name some of them off just for a general list, and some of these obviously have stories attached. I'm not gonna go through each individual story, but yeah. So as you say, not looking at him directly in the face is one. This is a combination of a couple things, but it is definitely more like you shouldn't be looking death in the face unless they are specifically doing the job of either collecting your soul or telling you they're going to collect your soul. This is more of along the lines of just let him be. Or them. Again, the way that the Ankou works is that either the first person of the year or the last person of the last year is the Ankou, so they do have the option to be female, but they are often presented as male within a variety of artwork. But yeah, if you hear the cart, you're supposed to stay indoors and not look outside your window and things like that. If you accidentally see them, you go about your business and don't go back to the place where you saw them until you hear them leave. Basically, you let the Ankou do its thing, and you don't directly interact with it. Now, this isn't necessarily done out of fear that the Ankou will attack you. The Ankou is not a hunter. It is a collector. And even then, it is more like the middleman of it collects you to bring you to where you're supposed to go. Now, specifically, that rule might be a little weird, but it's also usually seen as hooded, so maybe you can get away with it, but you are supposed to be hospitable to the Ankou. Such as, there is a story where the Ankou goes up to a man and is like, hey, I need some lodging for the night, and the man effectively goes, hey, we're having a party anyway, one more is not too much. The Ankou stays, and when he leaves, he basically tells the man, hey, I'm going to be back for you to collect your soul in 7 days. So some of the rule is being, when it interacts with you, you're hospitable. A lot of the times, the Ankou also has a cart. And again, you're kind of not supposed to look at the cart, but there is a story of someone who basically tries to hitch a ride with the Ankou, which doesn't go over well. Basically, he has a backpack or, a sack, and he tries to basically get on and lay it on the back of his cart, and the bag keeps falling through, and the man gets frustrated that he puts too much force with it. He ends up falling through. The Ankou doesn't attack him or anything, he just basically ignores this, seeming that the cart is going to just kind of protect itself anyway, in that these taboos are there because, hey, bad things are going to happen to you, regardless of how the Ankou feels about it, and the Ankou is too dedicated to its purpose to really care. There's also a huge thing there are multiple stories of don't mock the dead, don't pretend you're dead. There are at least 2 stories in Labrouse's book that effectively state that these people pretended to die, like held a fake funeral service and everything, and then they actually died. At least one story seems to heavily imply this was the fact that the Ankou was so close that its breath caused death, but it does seem like, particularly mocking death, might make yours come sooner. And again, this isn't really an etiquette rule, just something that you're not going to be able to do. Many stories basically state that you cannot bribe death. You are not getting out of the Ankou collecting you. It cannot be bribed, there is no riddle to solve, you are not playing chess to get out of it, you are being collected. Effectively, it's not fear of a predator type folklore. It is the intrinsic fear we have of death, and then we have the person who is the middleman of all that. That person being the Ankou. It doesn't necessarily have violent tendencies or anything, but it will fulfill the purpose. It only being anything that we can consider aggressive in the form of when someone mocks death to a certain point as to imitate it. So also used as something of an ironic comeuppance. Now you also specifically mention, I don't know how to pronounce this place, but I know it's in Brittany. In Plumbelau. My apologies to Brittany and French viewers. We get a really interesting case that the legend of the Ankou is more or less synchronized with that of the veneration of one of the patron saints of Brittany, specifically Saint Ivo of Kirmartin, also Saint Yves. In fact, the very specific, there's a statue that's painted and is like actually a historical artifact in Plaumelau. That is often called Little Yves. And that seemed to take on a completely new legend where you can almost invoke the name of the Ankou for disagreement. Now, in that case of this specific synchronization, we can certainly see it as being more aggressive when it is called upon, because effectively it's like, I swear on the Ankou that blah 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 happened. But the problem with this is that because the Ankou is so encompassed as being a personification of death, that either whoever is in the right is going to continue living. So basically, if someone makes an accusation and that accusation is true in this circumstance, the person that the accusation is against will die. And that kind of settles the legal agreement. But if you make a false claim, the Ankou's coming after you for disrespecting its name. So we're getting a very different picture of all this in this kind of specific Brittany variation of the Ankou. Partially out of the saint's association with lawyers. Now this is a very rough overview of, obviously there's going to be more to look up, and as I said, there are going to be variations based on time period, place, and exact everything of the legend, where even this book is a representation of how the oral folklore existed at that particular time. And yes, there's a volume 1 and a volume 2. I likely missed over some of the rules, but again, the majority of the rules is just avoid doing this than necessarily straight up etiquette. But again, the specific idea of specifically being something like a justiciar, relatively unique to the synchronization of the Ankou with Saint Yves. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there is folklore that I don't know that expresses similar ideas about the Ankou. But ultimately, it's not a vicious creature in any means. It just seems to have a great respect for its role, and if you are specifically basically mucking it or specifically calling upon it, it's gonna be rather annoyed. And as I said in the previous video of my Fairfolk Friday on the matter, there's not really a way to, like, summon it directly or to banish it. So when it's there, you just gotta be respectful, and if at all possible, avoid it. And if you have seen it without it wanting your attention, don't make it obvious that you saw it. And if you're gonna bring it up in an oath or a legal accusation, you better be in the right.